All right. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, we thank you all for being here today. And as always, we're having SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM discuss, and it's going to be taken care of by Her Grace LILA Devi, who also needs no introduction. She's one of us. Mother LILA, of course, she is a special disciple to His Holiness Sridhananda Goswami Maharaj. And it says like father, like son. Sometimes like father, like daughter. So Mother LILA really enjoys the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So Mother LILA, we're very grateful to have your presence once again. And if you are ready, we'll put the verse on the screen and then you'll start speaking. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
I'm ready. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Shriman Varahacharya Prabhu, and Hari Chakra, who I didn't get to greet. Hare Krishna. So Sahadev, today, if Krishna, if you can put the verse up, but I'd like to share the screen later, unless you want to pull up the verses that I'm going to refer to.
No, I'll give you the sharing rights, so you can do that.
Please give me the Shakti.
You already have it.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad to be here with all of you devotees. Yeah, it's my good fortune. I always get more than I give when I'm with you. So it doesn't seem like a fair exchange, but I'm taking it nonetheless.
Hare Krishna. So do you want to share from your end, or you want me to just share the text? You
I can do that. Okay.
All right, right.
Screen. Okay. This is our verse today. Hare Krishna, dear friends. Continuing our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 2, verse 14. Brajalila read verse 13 yesterday, taking us on a beautiful journey through meditation of the Virat Rupa of the Supreme Lord. And so today this continues with some explanation. So we'll start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimata Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so today we're going to read through the purport and discuss it while we're reading it, and then we'll share some related verses. So we'll also go on a journey through our scripture and see what we find there. Okay, so this verse is Yavanna Jayata Paravaresmin Vishveshware Drastari Bhakti Yogaha Tattvat Staviyaha Purusha Shasya Rupam Kriyavasane Prayataha Smareta. And translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. And so we'll start with this purport. The Supreme Lord is the seer of all worlds, both material and transcendental. In other words, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate beneficiary and enjoyer of all worlds, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 5:29. The spiritual world is the manifestation of his internal potency, and the material world is the manifestation of his external potency. The living entities are also his marginal potency, and by their choice, they can live in either the transcendental or material worlds. The material world is not a fit place for living entities because they are spiritually one with the Lord. And in the material world, the living entities become conditioned by the laws of the material world. Okay, so let's look at this verse that is being quoted, 529. So Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is the ultimate beneficiary and enjoyer of all worlds. So everything belongs to him. The Bhagavad Gita tells us this. So Bhagavad Gita says, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So it's very interesting in this verse because it's saying, so whoever's conscious of Krishna, that he is the enjoyer, chapter 13 says the enjoyer, and he's the recipient of everything. There's nothing that is given, sacrificed, offered, acquired that doesn't belong to him. And so sometimes it's funny to think about it that way because, you know, we try so hard, sometimes striving and endeavoring to achieve this or achieve that, or I'm going to give up this, I'm going to make this austerity, or I'm going to endeavor for this other thing. And Krishna is the ultimate beneficiary of all those things. So even though we think we're doing something for ourselves, everything belongs to him. He is the sacrifice. He's the fire of the sacrifice. He's the ghee. He's the offering itself. And he's the one who receives it. And then we're just playing our part. But sometimes it's easy to get confused and think I'm the one doing these things. And for example, with austerities and sacrifices, we don't own anything. We don't have anything to give except our love. And it's going to go back to the first verse where it talks about our free will. But if I don't have anything, how can I give up something? How can I renounce something that doesn't belong to me? It's not mine to give away. And this is one of the important things to remember. But more importantly, in this verse, it says, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. The material miseries don't actually ever go away because they are material miseries, part of the material world. They are built in. And so having full consciousness of Krishna, we will attain peace from those things. So this is very important because it's very, very practical. It's a very pragmatic thing about what happens when we are developing or growing or remembering little by little our Krishna consciousness, which is our original position, is to be in this relationship with Krishna, and that we attain peace from the material miseries. It doesn't say now you never have material miseries. It says you attain peace from them. And so this is very important. What does peace actually mean? I saw a commercial. It's a little sad that we've gotten to this place in our society, and there are benefits to technology and healthcare that is available now in a way that was never available to people in the world. So this is a very good thing. That we're very fortunate that so many people in so many countries have access to healthcare. But this commercial was saying, it had this woman, and she was talking about her depression, and it's about an app, a phone app that you download, and you tell, you know, it's a little impersonal. You tell a doctor on the other side of the app that you're feeling depressed and all of these things. And then she names the medication that they send her in the mail, and says, taking this medication, this is peace. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this isn't saying that when we need medication for certain things that we shouldn't use them, especially if they're prescribed by doctors. I'm not saying that. I'm just thinking that it's really far on that side of what actual peace is. And peace is not just taking a medication and now I have peace, because the reality of it is, let's just say, for example, for argument's sake, I have depression and I take antidepressants, which may be necessary, and the doctor will determine that. Okay, fine, that's good. But the things that bring me misery in this world the three kinds of miseries and the problems of life as described by our Shastra, they're not going to go away even if I don't have depression. Even if I'm happy all the time and I'm enthusiastic, these material miseries are still going to exist. So the best I can do is to increase my consciousness, bring my consciousness to Krishna, and attain peace from those things. And this is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So simple in its presentation, and yet so difficult in its execution, to be equal to happiness and distress, and all those things in between. Okay, so attaining peace from material miseries. This is a very important thing to remember. And so where are we? So it goes back to the Supreme Lord is the seer of all worlds, both material and transcendental. So in the Bhagavad Gita 9:5, Krishna says, and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself is the very source of creation. So one way to describe this is we can think of a spider and a spider web. A spider takes a lot of time, creates this spider web, very intricate. Sometimes they're very, very beautiful. And they create it in order to catch things in their web. But a spider doesn't get caught in its own web. It's actually it's transcendental to it. It is beyond that web. It will never get caught in it. It just creates it. It just puts it all together. And all the other jivas that happen to fly into that spider web do get caught. But the spider never does so. And so this is how Krishna is the source of everything, but can never actually come into illusion like we can. And so that's why the medicine is to come out of the illusion, come out of the spider web, and realize that, yeah, we're just having a good time with Krishna somewhere else, beyond that spider web of the material world. And so in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. So not only is he the seer of these worlds, he's the seer of these worlds because he's the source of them. And therefore he can understand everything. So everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. And so this is, again, it's very practical. If just understanding, if we are wise, we use our intelligence and our experience, right? Wisdom is intelligence and experience put together. So I have this knowledge and I've had these experiences and I know what cause and effects will come from what acts, and that becomes my wisdom. So I know what is what. So when we know that everything emanates from Krishna, then it's very easy to engage in devotional service. That's it. That's all that we need. And why is that? I mean, this is a question that, this is for all of us. Why is it that just this knowledge gives us the ability to engage in devotional service? So this is something to meditate on, and worship him with all our hearts. This is in the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's in the fifth, maybe 5.4, something like that. It said that the offering of our buddhi, of our intelligence, buddhi yoga, and so this analytical study of the tattvas per se, of the knowledge of what is what, of the categories of things, of the jiva, of the material world, of Krishna, is no different than bhakti yoga, than devotional service. So analytical study, buddhi yoga, is the same as devotional service, and one who sees them as the same sees things correctly. So it's all about our understanding, all about our consciousness and what we come to realize as truth. There's nothing else. And everything that we understand should feed into our practice, so that we can come to the place where we're just so in love with Krishna. So now we're going back to this verse. Okay, the Lord wants all living entities who are his parts and parcels to live with him in a transcendental world, and for enlightening conditioned souls in the material world. All the Vedas and the revealed scriptures are there expressly to recall the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the conditioned living entities, that's us, although suffering continually the threefold miseries of conditioned life, also us, are not very serious about going back to Godhead. It is due to their misguided way of living, complicated by sins and virtues. Some of them are virtuous by deeds. Who are virtuous by deeds begin to reestablish the lost relation within the Lord, but they are unable to understand the personal feature of the Lord. The real purpose of life is to make contact with the Lord and be engaged in his service. So it's saying here that there's somewhere else here that says because of our, yes, by their own choice. This is our free will. We are misusing our free will. And what is sin except the misuse of our free will in a way that takes us further away from Krishna? The jiva itself is pure, no matter what the material body of that jiva is or what our actions are. And it doesn't mean to excuse things, but Krishna Lila shows us that there can be demons and all these rakshasas and people doing all these evil things, killing babies and murdering different people, causing trouble. But what happens when Krishna actually takes care of them? They go back. Even if he cuts their heads off or he kills them all by these different very creative and fun methods that he uses in the 10th canto to kill all of these different troublemakers, they all go back into Krishna. So there are no jivas who are exempt from that. Everyone is, we are good at our core, at our very core. We are nothing but pure spirit. And so we have this free will, which is sometimes described as the evidence of Krishna's love for us, the fact that he lets us do whatever we want, even if he knows that we're going to be away from him for a very, very long time, and he knows that we're going to suffer in the meantime. And so he kind of calls his friends, and he calls Maya Devi, and he says, okay, they're coming this way, please take care of them. And so that's why in this world, we can't actually, the Bhagavad Gita says that the soul cannot be killed, it can't be cut, it can't be burned. We can't do anything to the soul. We don't actually ever get injured or get hurt. We're just away from him for a very long time. But the ability that we have to do that by our own free will, by our own choice, is described as his love for us. Because like a parent, when you love your child, but you know that the best thing to do is to let them go and do their own thing and let them explore the world and just pray that they're going to be safe, and maybe ask for some help and some protection from people that are going to be around them. But you let them go because it's about their journey. And so Krishna has a similar mood with us of just, okay, this is what you want. I mean, what biggest expression of love is there than to just let the other person be who they are and do what they want to do? Of course, we don't allow people to harm themselves, and he doesn't allow people to, to harm themselves in ultimately. We just get ourselves into some trouble and some miseries, and then we're stuck in this little circle of birth, age, disease, death, birth, age, and disease. Okay, so this is where we are, but we're not taking it very seriously. What does that mean? Why am I not taking it so seriously? Because I just think, well, this is normal. This is a part of life. Everyone gets older, everyone gets diseases, everyone's going to die. So it's just normal. I might as well just enjoy it. But no, we have to take it very seriously. This is not fun. This is not great. And we don't have to do this. But my realization of that, because I forget that I've done this millions and millions and millions of times over and over and over again, I forget that there's real suffering in that. So when we talk about sins and virtues, it's really important to understand that at our core, neither us nor anyone else is ontologically evil. We're just misguided. A sin is something that we do that takes us further away from Krishna, further away from who we actually are. And it's important to remember that, because when we don't have that understanding for ourselves, it creates shame and guilt. And when we don't have that understanding for others, we shame them, and it creates judgment. And so these things are not conducive to our spiritual life. To shame and guilt myself and to shame and judge others is not conducive. It's not seeing things as they are. And so, yeah, it's important to keep that in mind. Okay, and then ultimately that it's our free will. We have no one to blame but ourselves that we're here. It's our desire to be here. So this is the natural, and Srila Prabhupada also said this is no place for a gentleman. It's no place for a lady. It's just, but at the same time, the irony and the paradox is that this is the highest place that we can be on our way to the spiritual world, because our human incarnation is our greatest resource for that. It's our greatest blessing, that the fact that we have these bodies that are so much like our spiritual bodies, where we can just engage in Krishna consciousness right here, right now, don't need to go anywhere else. This is the great mystery and the great paradox of Krishna. That's Tatashta Shakti, that we can choose where we are, but it's not just where I put my body, and if I'm in the spiritual world or if I'm in the material world, I can choose where I am based on my consciousness. And it's that simple. And yet, because it's probably because it's right in front of us, we don't see it that way. And so Srila Prabhupada said, it's so simple, you may miss it. We are missing it, actually. Well, I am, that's most of the time, unless I'm hanging out with you guys. This is the natural position of living entities. But those who are impersonalists and unable to render any loving service to the Lord have been advised to meditate upon his impersonal feature, the Virat Rupa, or universal form. This is what we heard from Braja Lila yesterday about the form of the Lord. Some way or other, one must try to reestablish one's forgotten relation with the Lord if one at all desires to gain real happiness in life. So this real happiness in life is the happiness that doesn't go away no matter what happens. So now we have two things. We have peace during the miseries, the threefold miseries of the material world. And we have real happiness that isn't dependent. It is independent of anything that happens to us. And so if we value those things, we can use it as the feeding of what is needed to be steady. When we take these things seriously, then we can be steady in our practice. So being fixed comes from recognizing that this is of great value to me, because then I'm going to strive for that. But for the most part, until we come to that realization, we're striving for everything else. And that's okay. It is part of our dharma to take care of ourselves, to take care of our families, to contribute to our societies, to our communities, to the world in general. And we have to act. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. You have to do something. So the idea isn't to stop doing everything, it's just to do it in the right consciousness. It's not about what I'm doing, it's how I'm doing it. What consciousness am I doing it in? So gaining real happiness in life. Okay, this sounds really good. I want to do that. And to reclaim his natural unfettered condition. Unfettered. Well, that's interesting. Unfettered. So fettered is like, unfettered means released, free, unbound. And so what are we bound? What are we bound to? We're bound to pretty much everything, the gunas, They're binding us. We can't act without the gunas having their say in it. You know, we can't do anything freely. And in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a purport. Actually, this is a really good one, so I'm going to pull it up. I think it's the one after this. No, it's 230. And this $230, maybe it's 229. Perhaps they no idea that one must think of the soul and thus make a solution. It talks about a solution to the material miseries. Just thinking about the soul. That's what this is saying. Just thinking about the soul. One must think of the soul and thus make a solution to the material miseries. There actually is a solution to the material miseries. And what is that? To think about Krishna, to go back to that real understanding, that real knowledge. Brajalila spoke yesterday about the pastime with the cowherd boys. And in the verse that said that where Krishna is saying, why don't you go to the wives of the Brahmanas? He's saying, because their intelligence rests in me. It's not because they're doing all these rituals and they're doing all of these things. It's because why are they the highest and they are responding from the highest place is because their intelligence rests in him. And he says, because their intelligence rests in me, they are always affectionate towards me. So you see that this is a huge connection, that knowledge of Krishna, knowledge of who he is, gives us that affection. And so this is, all we need to do is hear about him, inquire about him, read things about him, talk about him. Okay, so I think this is the purport. Maybe it's not, maybe it's 32. No, I think that was it. So there's a purport somewhere in here where Krishna talks about, if, or Prabhupada says, but it's in there. Prabhupada says, if we offer everything to Krishna, we are no longer duty bound to anyone. You're no longer a debtor. You don't owe any debt to anyone, including ancestors, society, the world, no one. And so that's freedom, because what is it when, you know, when you have debt, they've got you. That's it. When you owe somebody something, you are not free. And that is such an interesting place to be in. I'm just going to look up this verse because it's a really, really important one. Okay, so 238. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress. Again, that peace, no matter what's happening, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by doing so, you shall never incur sin. So, and it's quoting the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. This is 11th canto. Yeah, here. Anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse. And the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses. The next verse is where he says, thus have I described this knowledge to you through analytical study. And that is Sankhya, so analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in the terms of working without fruitive results. So this analytical study and devotional service is the same. As I said, it was explained in the 5th chapter. I think it's 5.4. But this one, what is this giving us freedom from? If we don't owe anyone, so okay, what does this mean? So the Srimad Bhagavatam saying, if you surrender unto Krishna and, you know, sarva dharma parityaja, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me alone, If you do that, you don't owe anybody anything. Does that mean that I am no longer obliged to my family, or to, I don't have to go to work anymore? I don't have to take care of my parents. I don't have to be good to my spouse. I don't think that that's what it means, and that and that we don't have a responsibility to our society and our community anymore. I don't think that's what it means. What it means is that when we're not indebted to them because we've surrendered to Krishna, it means we now have the freedom to act from love, not out of dry duty. And what sweeter thing is there than to do what we do out of love? And so the core of that is to offer it to Krishna. And if I haven't gotten there yet, then I practice with all of those same people and all of those same things, and I offer out of love because it's for Krishna. And then I come to the realization that I have more love to give than I even know what to do with. I have it all for the demigods, for the sages, the people, the kinsmen, humanity, and the forefathers. But it's not out of duty. I don't owe anyone anything. And so if that's not freedom, then I don't know what is, because that sounds like freedom to me. To be free to act from love, that's the ultimate freedom. It has to be, because we are just loving beings at our core, in our essence. Okay, so reclaiming unfettered condition. Naturally, we are free, and we are free to love. That's our freedom. For the less intelligent beginners, meditation on the impersonal feature of the Virat Rupa, or universal form of the Lord, will gradually qualify one to rise to personal contact. This is what Brajalila spoke of yesterday, rising to. So being it is a process. And just going, what is the word that's used? Progressive? I don't remember the word that was used, but it just means, gradual. It's gradual. It's a gradual process. And then ultimately we get to see the Lord face to face, like the Sri Upanishad says, I just want to see you face to face. One is advised herewith to meditate upon the Virat Rupa specified in the previous chapters in order to understand how the different planets, seas, mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and all that we can conceive are but different parts and limbs of the Lord's Virat form. This sort of thinking is also a type of meditation on the absolute truth. And as soon as such meditation begins, one develops one's godly qualities, and the whole world appears to be a happy and peaceful residence for all the people of the world. So there it is again, happy and peaceful. And it says the world appears to be a happy and peaceful place. But if we're still in the material world, what has changed? The world certainly hasn't, and it's not going to. So the thing that changed is our consciousness. So now, because my consciousness is happy and my consciousness is peaceful, the world is going to appear happy and peaceful, and I can engage in devotional service. And then we can give that same understanding to others, because the gunas themselves aren't just things that affect things that we engage with, they also affect our perception. And so if I have if I'm in the mode of ignorance, my perception is going to be in the mode of ignorance, and therefore what I see is going to be in the mode of ignorance. And you can see that when we're in a certain mood, everything we see is just the worst, annoying. It could be like a kitten and you're just angry at it because the mind is already disturbed. So without such meditation on God, either personal or impersonal, all good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position. And without such advanced knowledge, the whole world becomes a hell for the human being. So the world is the world, it's the same. And why is it that it looks like a hell to one person, or it feels like hell to me one day, and another day it's so happy? It's because of the consciousness. So how much do we need to strive to change the world, as opposed to striving to change our own consciousness and clearing that up? You know, like that phrase that says, clean your own side of the street first. This is We can use that in spirituality as well. I wanted to share this. This is one of my my absolute favorite. This is from the Krishna book, chapter 63, when Krishna is fighting Banasura, and Lord Shiva is on the side of Banasura. And so Lord Shiva sends out his weapon, and now Krishna decides the only thing that I can do is to send out my weapon against this. And so then the two weapons start fighting with each other. And then Lord Shiva's weapon realizes, I'm not going to win this, so I should just surrender. And he surrenders, and the weapon itself is starting to glorify Krishna. It's the greatest thing. And he's talking about this impersonal form of the Lord and the personal form of the Lord. And then here comes Banasura is trying to attack Krishna, and Lord Shiva, who is there on the side of Banasura, sees that his devotee is about to get smashed by Krishna, and so he interferes. So this is Lord Shiva speaking to him, and he says, I'll just read the whole paragraph. So Lord Shiva says to Krishna, "My dear Lord, you are the worshipable object of the Vedic hymns. One who does not know you considers the impersonal Brahmajyoti to be the ultimate supreme absolute truth, without knowledge that you exist behind your spiritual effulgence in your eternal abode. My dear Lord, you are therefore called Parabrahman. Indeed, the words Param Brahman have been used in the Bhagavad Gita to identify you. Saintly persons who have completely cleansed their hearts of all material contamination can realize your transcendental form." This is where it gets really interesting. So if we clean our hearts of material contamination, what does that heart mean? Does it mean like I shouldn't have high blood pressure, or I should eat only healthy fats? I think this is referring to our consciousness, our heart. It's including our subtle body, our minds, our intelligence, purifying all that, purifying my desires, because they're living in my heart. Everything comes from there. So that's what it means. So, but yes, we should avoid high blood pressure and all those kinds of things. Although you are, okay, so we can realize this transcendental form, although you are all pervading like the sky, unaffected by any material thing. So just like that spider in the spider web, completely unaffected, but is in charge of the whole thing. Only the devotees can realize you and no one else. In the impersonalist conception of your supreme existence, the sky is just like your navel, fire is your mouth, and water is your semen. The heavenly planets are your head, all the directions are your ears. The earth, Urvi, is your lotus feet. The moon is your mind and the sun is your eye. As far as I am concerned, I act as your ego. The ocean is your abdomen, and the king of heaven, Indra, is your arm. Trees and plants are the hairs on your body. The clouds are the hair on your head, and Lord Brahma is your intelligence. All the great progenitors known as Prajapatis are your symbolic representatives, and religion is your heart. The impersonal feature of your supreme body is conceived of in this way, but you are ultimately the supreme person. The impersonal feature of your supreme body is only a small expansion of your energy. You are likened to the original fire, and your expansions are its light and heat. What's important here, and the reason I like this, is because sometimes we take on this idea that to consider the impersonal form of the Lord is somehow less. It is only if we put that above his personal form and our personal relationship to him. But if we understand that his personal form is the source of the impersonal, and that our ultimate relationship with him is very, very, it is super personal. It is radically personal. Then, of course, we can respect and honor and see with awe and wonder his form. This description of him is incredibly beautiful. It's incredibly poetic. The mistake doesn't come in seeing this aspect of Krishna. The mistake comes when we think that this is the only aspect and the highest aspect of Krishna. So we just have one more thing to fall in love with, the way that he expands himself. Whenever we see something beautiful, whenever we see a landscape, or we're standing in the Grand Canyon or in front of the ocean or something just majestic, this is Krishna's form. And it's not less than Krishna. It's just one of his expansions. It's the way he's presenting. And it's just another thing that can blow our minds. And then we can find that awe, that respect, that wonder. And ultimately it brings us into wanting to serve. Who doesn't want to love and have a relationship with, even as friends or as parents or as lovers? Who doesn't want to be in association with someone who expands themselves in that way? That you're just amazing. Of course I want to hang out with you. And then I can offer devotional service. So this is one of the ways in which our understanding, our knowledge becomes the foundation for our devotional service. And like the Bhagavad Gita says, is they are no different. As we're trying to think these things through and use our intelligence and use everything that we have, our minds, our propensities for reading, for studying, for wondering, for asking questions, for being curious, this is the doorway to finding that devotional service. Because devotional service for Krishna, it's not going to come by force. It can't be forced. If it's forced, it's not devotional service. If it's not freely given, then he doesn't want it. I mean, who wants something? Do you want someone to do something for you just because they have to? That doesn't feel so good, you know? I would rather do it myself. And so that was what was going on with the cowherd boys. It was like, well, you guys don't have to worry about doing it out of duty. You know, you can't even sort out to give someone some food. Hey, I got these other devotees who are just going to give it to me just out of pure love, because their intelligence is resting on me. And because they have that intelligence, then automatically they are affectionate. The word that's used, I think it was, maybe it was related to Priya, but they're considerate of me. And Krishna says, think of me always, be considerate of me, just like a friend. And so it's good to look at how we do that. How do we connect with the personal aspect of Krishna? And let's not forget that his impersonal aspect is also him. It's not any less than. It's still very much him. And we can use that as something to look at and be in awe and wonder and fall in love with him all over again. I have a practice that when I wake up in the morning, I say, good morning, Krishna. And you know, he's there, he's somewhere, he's everywhere, he's hearing that. But the important thing about that is this, that I can tell the state of my consciousness by how many thoughts I have before I think of Krishna. And sometimes it takes minutes. Like, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about my day. Oh, what happened yesterday? Oh, this dream I had. And then, oh my God, Krishna, yes, I remember now. And when my consciousness is clear, he's the first thing that I think about. So I'm using that as my own gauge to see where my consciousness is. How quickly do I remember Krishna? And how quickly do I forget? So yeah, I urge you to share with us how do you connect with Krishna as a person? I certainly want to learn more ways to do that. So these are just some thoughts on this verse, dear friends. Thank you very much for hearing, for your presence. Any questions, comments, worries, corrections?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother Lila, for, wow, that was like a whole research you did on this text and purport. I say research because, one, we do not need to do any research, but I say research because you did a lot of studies to get the information from all the different sources. So dear devotees, if anyone has a question, comment, realization, you may indicate by using the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak. Well, Mother Lila, I have one quick question.
Yes, of course.
There is this musician, Shania Twain. I like her songs.
Yeah, she's a country music, I think.
Yeah, she's a country music, yes.
Yeah.
There is one song of hers that says, that don't impress me much. And, and I'm reminded of that song because for most of us, if not all of us, but for most of us who are somehow fortunate to come to know about Krishna and attempting to serve him in various ways, we worship, we approach Krishna with awe and reverence. And especially those who approach God, Krishna, in his Virat Rupa form, there is awe and reverence. And here Krishna is telling us, worshiping him with awe and reverence doesn't impress him much. And that is our level. So how can we really impress Krishna when all our worship service to Krishna is influenced with awe and reverence? Of course, we cannot jump to become like the gopis where they do not have awe and reverence. But at our level, where we approach God with awe and reverence, or in awe and reverence, and he says it does not impress him much, how do we then get benefited from the services we render to get it to the platform where this awe and reverence becomes null and void? Hare Krishna.
Oh, great question. I like this one. I feel like I'm going to get myself in really good trouble with this one.
No.
Because I think, is it possible that we can have both? I think we need awe and reverence, not because he needs it, but because I need to forget that he's big and I'm small. Because my ego very quickly is like, yes, I am the greatest thing. And I am the center of the universe. So the awe and reverence is not for him. The awe and reverence is for me, so that I know who I am, that I'm little, happy, small. But in order to get to that personal place with him, we have to be completely irreverent. You just have to be, because reverence isn't Arjuna sleeping in the same bed with him. That's if he saw it as God, as the supreme personality of Godhead, that would have been completely irreverent. And what the cowherd boys do, where he's saying this in the CC, in the Antya Lila, he's giving all the descriptions of how he wants to engage with the devotees. And he's saying, whatever mellow that the devotee worships me, I reciprocate. And he says, if he cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking of me of his son, his friend, or beloved, then I become subordinate to him. He's saying that. So in verses 21 and 22, this is the 4th chapter of Adi Lila. If one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking of me as his son, his friend, or his beloved, regarding himself as great and considering me his equal or inferior, I become subordinate to him. And so he says, mother sometimes binds me as her son. She nourishes and protects me, thinking me utterly helpless. My friends climb on my shoulders in pure friendship, saying, what kind of big man are you? You and I are equal. And if my beloved consort reproaches me in a sulky mood, that steals my mind from the reverent hymns of the Vedas. Now, if we go to the purport of this particular verse, that's Adi Lila 426, Srila Prabhupada says something really, really interesting. In the third paragraph, he says, regulative principles in devotional service are meant for those who have not invoked their natural love of Godhead. So awe and reverence, unless we have pure love, if we're trying to get there. So we need to be regulated in our devotional service until we develop natural love of God. Now, what does that mean? Okay, I think I have natural love of God, so I'm just going to go and do whatever I want. No. And our acharyas don't do that. Even a pure devotee doesn't do that. Why? Not because he needs to, but now he needs to set the example. And so now he's an acharya or she's an acharya, and they need to set an example. And this is how you do it. That was Lord Chaitanya's example. But all of these things, that awe and reverence, that regulative principles, the rules and regulations are only to get us to the platform. Because once we're at that level, once we're in that true communion with Krishna, all of that goes out the window. You can't be awe and reverence and be surrendered in that way. Just be real. If you see your best friend as awe and reverence, I mean, no one likes that. If you, I don't, probably a lot of you are famous, right? And people like know you, and they like, who likes that? That you see like famous people. So many people have awe and reverence for them. It doesn't make them feel any better. And maybe for a little while, it's like, great, I'm special. I've done all these great things. Yes, everyone adores me, but that's not personal. That it's like you said, it doesn't impress anybody. So what will impress is keeping that remembrance of why we have awe and reverence, because I actually have nothing without you. But then to be completely irreverent. That's it. That's the solution. Complete irreverence for Krishna. And it's, yeah, I can understand. We want to be careful. We don't want to be disrespectful, and we want to keep our integrity. But he's going to show us. If we get puffed up and prideful, and we get, and we kind of step out of line, life is going to show us very quickly that we're kind of gearing in the wrong direction. Something's going to deflate that ego, and that's also his mercy. So we can't be afraid of him. How is that love if I'm afraid of him? So yes, my vote is for irreverence balanced with awe and reverence.
Thank you so much, Mother Lila Devi. Yeah, very nice explanation to my question. Dear devotees, if anyone has something to say, please, you may unmute. One thing I just wanted to bring across, because there have been a few times that we've been holding quite a detailed discussion on we as living entities, whether devotional service is inherent or it is something that has to be learned. And in this purport that you eloquently discussed today, and I was very impressed because you actually highlighted that particular part in the purport. And if the what is within mind, I would like to share it from my end here, where Srila Prabhupada says that the real purpose of life is to make contact with the Lord and be engaged in his service. That is the natural position of living entities. So that is our natural position, to serve the Lord. And that means that it has always been with us. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard Srila Prabhupada say that everybody serves, everybody gives service and receives service. But the best person to render service to is God. And that if we do not serve God, then we turn God and it becomes dog. Then we serve our dog instead of serving God. God turned the other way around is DOG, because we've turned our laws the other way around, giving our backs to God, Krishna. So it's very interesting that Srila Prabhupada has, if not, I think he's answered every question there could be in this material life, and he's answered them. We just have to read. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an interesting. I love that debate. You know, and it's about the fall of the jiva also.
Yeah.
But you know, we have to, for following Srila Prabhupada, it's back to Godhead, not, you know, first time ever to Godhead.
Yeah.
It's going back home. And so yeah, we already have it. And the what's used and it was in that purport also in some of the verses, is that we're just covered. It doesn't mean we'll develop into, you know, a loving jiva. It's already there. It's just covered. And so yeah, we take that seriously. We can understand that it's just like waking up from sleep, and now we see this reality is more real than the dreams that we were having. Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So devotees, anyone has something to share? Is Shrimad Prabhu still here? Yeah, I think he's here. Shrimad Prabhu, you have something to share?
I'd be curious to hear about people's personal relationships with Krishna. I have a friend who sometimes when they get very upset, I mean, I'm not recommending this, but their personal relationship is to just speak very honestly to Krishna and just get angry and, you know, basically just have a meltdown and start the way it would be with any other person. And so it's not that that's the best way to speak to Krishna, like it is to anyone else, but the underlying thing under that, the underlying thing in that is that there's a sense of safety. When we have our loved ones and those people that are close to us, and we know that they love us and they're going to accept us, those are the people that we are more freely able to show our anger and our displeasure and our misery and our depression, and we can just be, you know, the way these temporary emotions and things come on to us. We can express them better when we feel safe with someone. And so that's, unfortunately, sometimes in our relationships, that's why we can behave angrily towards those that are closest to us. Well, it's not because we don't love them as much. It's because we feel safe. Like, I can express what I'm feeling right now. I'm really struggling. I'm really suffering. I'm angry. I'm irritated. And I know you're going to hold that and love me anyway. And so it's the same with Krishna. So those are the things, you know, we can talk philosophy all day long, but unless we're really putting it into practice, what does it mean to, what you said, come out of the awe and reverence? What does it mean to actually do that? What does it look like for each one of us? Otherwise, you know, we're not really getting the point if we're not putting it into practice. So I'm curious if at least one of you wants to share. What about you, Sahadev? What do you do?
Yeah, I would like to share something. See, I very well remember when I first moved to Gitanagri. I used to serve on the altar, and at that time I used to dress Lalita Vishaka, the gopis, and the chief pujari who used to dress Radha Damodara wanted me to dress Radha Damodar. And she actually went to my Gurudev and made this pronouncement. So my Gurudev called me and told me, okay, this is going to be a service. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about it. And wow, I said no to my Gurudev. I told him, I said, no, Gurudev, I wouldn't do this. I can't do it. And the reason I said that is from experiences I had when I was back home in my country, that on the altar, whenever I do service on the altar, and I make an error. Once I walk out from the altar, I get an instant chastisement. And I understand why this harsh thing happened to me. It's like somebody tells me, because you did this, that's why you get this. So it gave me some sort of fear, going on the altar, because anytime, and like you said, talking to Krishna, I remember I used to talk to Krishna. I said, Krishna, why are you doing this to me? I'm not a very advanced devotee. I'm subject to make mistakes. Leave me alone. I used to speak like this to Krishna. You can tell how crazy I am. So those are some experiences I've had with Krishna sometimes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I'm sure he probably just laughed at it, Yeah,
it was quite scary for me to go on the altar, because any slight error, like maybe just putting a pin in the deity's clothes and then it pierces through and touch the deities, I get chastised for that. Like if the pin touches the deity, I walk out, and out of nowhere, a nail will pierce through my shoes. What? So I said, oh no, Krishna. Hare Krishna.
And I wonder if the end result of that is that now you are excellent and never make any mistakes.
Oh, I wish that is the case. No. I still make mistakes.
What a sweet pastime. Thank you for sharing that.
But I think Krishna has been lenient. He doesn't chastise me as much.
Yeah. Well, here's to our irreverence. The best relationships aren't those of the most loving, and most intimate ones aren't those of reverence. Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much, dear devotees. I hope everyone has a beautiful Krishna conscious day. What time is it for it's the afternoon?
Yeah, I would say it's late afternoon to those in West Africa. Yeah.
Okay.
It's around 4 or 5 p.m.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, it was my honor and my pleasure to be here with all of you. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Oh, I think there is a question in the chat room.
Oh yeah, let's see. Oh, Rasa Vilas. So sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Do you want me to read?
Yes, please. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So the first part of the question is acknowledgement of the beautiful class you gave. And okay, 410 in Ghana.
Okay.
Yes. And then in your delivery, you said that one has to offer everything back to Krishna to be happy. And the Lord stated in the Bhagavad Gita that if one offers to him with love and devotion a little water, leaf, flower, or fruit, he will accept. Now, what happens to a person who, let's say, is not a practitioner or, a practitioner of Vaishnava philosophy, who offers meat and other food to the Lord after cooking? Will the Lord be happy? And can this person also be happy? Please throw a little light on this for me. I hope you get this question.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That's a really important thing for us to think about, because the last thing we want to do is to become judgmental towards the people who are offering things in a different consciousness. It's, for some of us, it's not easy. It's not hard. For me, it's, for example, I wasn't raised as a Vaishnava, and so I wasn't always a vegetarian. So I just have to remember where I come from, and it makes it easier to see that if we're not taught any better, we don't know any better. So if we're just in ignorance, we're just in ignorance. I think what happens, I've seen people make offerings, like really people who try to live in the mode of goodness as much as possible, and they are, let's just say, spiritual people who have an understanding of the divine, and their offerings, because they don't follow the same principles, they may still eat meat and things like that, but then make offerings knowing exactly where everything comes from, not exactly as in from Krishna, but they have some idea of the divine. Maybe it's something related to demigods, or the impersonal form that, the universe, everything comes from the universe. So it's a more impersonal aspect. But if Krishna accepts what it is, it's not so much that he's accepting the water or the leaves or the fruit, but he's accepting the bhakti, the offering of the heart and of the intelligence. And so this is only a speculation, but I wonder if he sees people, because the Bhagavad Gita talks about sacrifice made in the different modes, and a sacrifice is a sacrifice, but it can be made in the mode of ignorance, or in the mode of passion, or in the mode of goodness. And then there's sacrifice beyond that is transcendental. But I wonder if Krishna sees sincerity in someone who's offering in the mode of ignorance or the mode of passion, it would make sense that Krishna then gives them the opportunity to offer in the mode of goodness by perhaps introducing another person into their lives who will talk to them about being a vegetarian and about caring for living entities. Or maybe within their own hearts, they start to consider these things, and they come across something that just changes their minds. So in that way, perhaps assisting us in, because I mean, this is the way it happens for a lot of us. We kind of want to make some change. I know it took me years to become a vegetarian, and it wasn't until I met the devotees that I then finally had the support that I needed for that. But the desire was there. This doesn't feel right. Something's not, it's wrong, but I can't. I'm so conditioned that I can't make the change that I need to change. And somehow or other, I was assisted. So I would say that I don't know what happens to that person, except that probably they get some assistance if their heart is pure, and maybe their intention is pure, and then they get the ability to offer in the mode of goodness, because I can't imagine that if we're in difficulty, we're in illusion, Krishna's just going to leave us there. And then this purport said, this is why we have the Vedas, and we have the Shastras, and we have all of these things that are here to remind us. That's Krishna's way of not letting us go, by sending us teachers, sending us books, sending us scriptures, sending us traditions that are true. Yeah, at the same time, I don't know if he's going to be happy that someone's offering that. But I know that on the other hand, and I'll just say this and we'll go to Anadi Prabhu. someone can be a vegetarian and still be mistreating other people. And so does that make him happy? If our offering doesn't have meat in it, but then we're treating Krishna's other jivas with very little respect, perhaps even abuse or judgment. So, we kind of have to weigh it. I hope that makes a little sense.
And I didn't need sorry.
Yeah.
That's Vilas.
Yeah, yes. Krishna, yes, it makes a lot of, it's clarified at that, because that's one of the few questions that when we are interacting with people, you tell them what to do, they bring up such questions that if one way or the other, they're also practicing something similar. Are they lost? Are they wrong? They come up with such questions. So I just needed a fair idea. So that maybe anytime I come across something like this again, I would know which angle. Well, all I could say was that, as it is stated in the Gita, that as all surrenders unto him, he rewards them accordingly. That is the text that I normally use as explanation, but you have given a different insight to that. So I'm appreciating that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one more thing about that is that, psychologically speaking, we can support people, and then perhaps suggest, if we're helping people in their practice, suggest like, okay, maybe just make one offering once a week without meat, and then maybe 2 offerings, and like that, like increasing the ability to offer in a different way. But psychologically speaking, people change only when there are certain conditions, and one of those conditions is unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard means I accept you no matter what, and I'm here to support you. If we approach people with judgment, you're doing it wrong, you should do it better, all of these things are going to happen to you if you continue, that does not create a conducive environment for us to change. It's just a psychological thing. I won't change if I feel that I'm being judged. It's hard. And so if someone says, yeah, I'm accepted, I know I'm loved, yeah, it makes you more willing to try to do it a different way. And I think Krishna himself gives us unconditional positive regard. And so that's how come we're able to take to the process of bhakti, because he doesn't discard us when we make mistakes, or we're still in ignorance, or we still have attachments to this or that. And so that's a really important thing to remember. It comes from a psychiatrist named Carl Rogers. He said there are different things that we need for change to be present, for change to happen. And that's just one of them. I think there's 3 or 4. So I hope that helps also, and encouraging people.
All right. Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. I have something to say in this regard, but we'll first go to Anadinidanam, and then we'll go to Shimavaraha Prabhu. Maybe they may have something to say in this regard. Yes.
Please let Shimavaraha Prabhu speak first. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So Shimavaraha Prabhu, please, you may unmute. Anadinidanam, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mother Lila, my
Hare
obeisance,
Krishna.
and to all the participants also. I'm sorry, I wasn't close to the phone. I'm sorry asking to see something. That's the last question. That's what I want to comment on. I feel that it is not the problem for a practitioner who is the neophyte. His problem will be how to offer to Krishna, not what to offer to Krishna. If he's a practitioner. If he's not a practitioner, then there's no question of what to offer to Krishna, because he's not a practitioner anymore. So he doesn't know Krishna. If you don't know me and you want to gift me something, it'll be difficult for you to do that, because you have to know me first and know what kind of things I will appreciate as a gift. So when you say a non-practitioner is questioning whether I can offer a meat to Krishna, actually it's not the practitioner, so it's not his concern what to offer to Krishna. He can offer what he has So whoever he worships, we do not criticize that. Right. But if it is Krishna, then you have to know Krishna first. I mean, that is all about the personal relationship that we were talking about, the personal, touch of worshiping God. So it is personal, and you have to know what it means to be personal. So if you're not practicing, that means that you still don't know Krishna. Because when you know Krishna, you will love him. And once you love somebody, you don't want to give him something he doesn't like. You don't even want to do something that he doesn't like. That is the basis of love. You cannot say, I mean, that's what Jesus Christ in the Bible. If you love me, keep my commandments. So it's a basic principle. So if it's a non-practitioner, but he wants to offer meat to God, okay, yeah, that aspect of God you are worshiping, you can offer him what you have, right? But when you get closer to God, and the form on his personal form as Christian, of course, that is not acceptable. So it's fine. It's fine, right? Okay, so those relate to contribution to the point. I'm pretty sure the point given earlier also. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
That is an excellent point. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, if they're not a practitioner of Krishna, then they're just making an offering. It's not our concern. But once we do know, we already know. If you know him, you know what he likes and what he doesn't like, and there's no question, no confusion. And I really appreciate what you said. We can't judge that if someone's not a practitioner. It's not for us to judge that. Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yeah. So we got Anadinidana Prabhu. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful etiquette you just showed, Anadinidana. Thank you.
I'm just learning from Ishmael Sade from Hare Krishna. All glory, all glory to the assembled devotees. And that was pronounced. So, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Mother, my question is, as far as the chanting of the holy name is concerned, as well as the Mayavadis, when a Vaishnava accepts the chanting of the holy name, of course, we know that the holy names of the Lord is equal to the Lord himself. So if a Vaishnava accepts the chanting of the holy name, but struggling to accept the deities as the supreme personality of Godhead, what then is the plight of that Vaishnava? Is he a Mayavadi, or you can still consider him a Vaishnava? A Vaishnava. Hare Krishna. I don't know if my question is clear.
Yes, I think, let me just make sure I understood. So if you have a devotee who is chanting the holy names, but is having trouble accepting the deities, the form of the deities as the Lord,
yes,
what is going to happen?
Yeah, knowing very well that the chanting of the holy name is as good as meeting the supreme personality of Godhead, but struggling to accept the deities as the supreme personality. What is the plight of such a devotee? Can we consider him a Mayavadi or a Vaishnava? That is my question. I need a clarification on this.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Let's think about that. Can we consider them a Mayavadi? I wonder where else we see Krishna. I mean, what about people? Wow, that's a really interesting question. Can we? I don't know that we can consider them a Mayavadi, because the form of the deity is not the only representation, and it's not the only expansion of Krishna. Better to pray for that site. If we don't have the site, better to pray for it. But I guess it depends on what's in the heart of the person. I mean, one thing is to struggle to see the deities as Krishna themselves. We don't have the material sight to see. We don't have the material sight. We don't have the spiritual sight. We only have material sight to see. And so is it a wonder that we can't see? because our sight hasn't been spiritualized and our senses are so dull. But does that automatically make us a Mayavadi? What about, and this is let's just be really honest about this. What about people who don't so much have an attraction for deities or deity worship? Does that make them not a Vaishnava if they know Krishna as the absolute truth and as a source and foundation of absolutely everything, and that he's in the hearts of all the other devotees and all the other living entities? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that, I mean, is there a difference between having attraction for the deities because we see that they are Krishna? Is there a difference between that and what you're saying of accepting them as Krishna? But I'm not sure. That's not the only way that Krishna presents himself to us. And of course, we don't have the sight, but really, I think this is the big question. If someone doesn't particularly find any inspiration in the form of the deities, can we really say that that is not a Vaishnava? Because what if they have a really close relationship with the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, which is the incarnation of Krishna, or with the holy names, or with just hearing of the pastimes and qualities of Krishna, but there's no particular attraction to the form of the deities? I'm not so sure that that makes them any less of a Vaishnava.
All right.
This could be a big thing.
You're
You're gonna get in trouble, Sahadi.
Yeah. I will opine that, of course, like I said, it's my opinion, and devotees can correct me if I go wrong. But Anadi Nirana Prabhu's question, which Madalila, you answered quite beautifully. But I also want to add to what you just said, that such a devotee is neither a Mayavadi, or a Vaishnava. He's not a Mayavadi, and he's not a Vaishnava. A Mayavad is one who believes that everything is illusory. But if someone is a Vaishnava takes its root from Vishnu, that someone who worships Vishnu. And that is why, as Vaishnavas, we put the mark of Lord Vishnu on our forehead, the tilak. That is the symbol of Lord Vishnu. Those who are Shivites, they go 3 lines on the forehead. And if they know Lord Shiva is a being, is a person. And so as Vaishnavas, we also know that Lord Vishnu is a person. So if one does not have attraction to a particular form of the Lord, it's different. It's okay, but it's different from when somebody does not believe or accept that the Lord has a form. So those 2 distinctions, we should try to be clear about it. That, for example, I'm not very much attracted to Baladev, Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra. I'm not particularly attracted to Baladev. Why? Because Baladev is quick to chastising. And that is just the reason why I'm not so much attracted to Baladev. But that does not make me think that there is no such form of the Lord. So a Vaishnava is one who worships Lord Vishnu and knows Lord Vishnu as a person. And all other forms and incarnations of Lord Vishnu, he worships and adores. So at best, we may say he is an impersonalist. There is a difference between someone who is a impersonalist and someone who is a Mayavadi. An impersonalist believes that God is a person There are realities in life, but it has no form. And such people cannot be considered Vaishnavas. That is my opinion, but we'll go to Harichakra Prabhu. And I don't know if Madalila, you have something to share.
No, no, you said it perfectly. Thank you for, and that's the distinction, whether it's attraction or accepting that there is a form. There's two very different things. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Harichakra Prabhu, if you're available, please unmute.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Mother, thank you very much for your class and the explanations that you've given us so far is so convincing. I just wanted to chip in something first about the question about the meat eating thing that the Ras Vilas question. Yeah, I think if you read the Christ and Krishna, the book Christ and Krishna, it is explained in Christ and Krishna that even the worshippers of Kali, as long as they remain in the house of the Vedas, they gradually will make progress on the line of devotion. They say they will gradually make progress. So similarly, wherever you are, I mean, that's why every religious group that you join, there are rules and regulations that guide them. And all that you need to be is to be sincere. If you are genuine in your practice, then gradually you will make progress. Krishna, in his own causeless mercy, will direct you, because if you pass one level, then Krishna will direct you to the next level, like that. So it doesn't matter where you are. All you need is sincerity. You can be a vegetarian. Like a lot of people are vegetarians, but that doesn't mean that they've known God. And somebody used to say that monkeys and cows, they are all vegetarians. Does that mean they are God realized? So the point is, wherever you are, as long as you are sincere and you are following, you are practicing genuinely from your heart, then Krishna in the heart will direct you to the next level, and the next level, until you come to the platform where you will see him face to face. And my second thing is the second question, Anandi Nidanam's question, that even we accept, those of us that we say, oh, we are devotees, we accept the deities. Many a time, even though we say we have accepted the deities as God, but deep in our heart we haven't. So the example is the story of Shashigopa. The story of Shashigopa. True Brahmins. See, these two Brahmins went to see the deities. They went on pilgrimage, went to see the deities, offered their obeisance, everything. And the rich Brahmana made a vow in front of the deity. And the poor Brahmin also acknowledged that vow. But when it came to a point where the rich Brahmin had to fulfill his part of the vow, now at a certain point,
you got muted, Harichakra Prabhu. I don't know.
He started doubting the power of the deity, the reality of the deity. So he denied that he did not make that vow. So does that mean that that Brahmin was actually not a Brahmin? So sometimes, even though sometimes it's difficult. We can't blame everybody, but sometimes it's difficult, even though we are told that this is Krishna on the altar. But sincerely speaking, how many people really believe that is Krishna? And if it's Dave or somebody who said it, that one day, like room and we are offering obeisance. And we offer obeisance. And then by the time you raise up your head, Nishinga Devi standing there, you will see people run away and how many people will stay. So the thing is, we need the mercy of Guru to actually be able to imbibe, to actually accept that the deity we are dealing with is the Supreme Lord himself. Other than that, we may even be in front of the deity every day, but deep within our heart, we might not even accept him as the Supreme Lord. We really need mercy. We need the mercy of Guru and Krishna himself to be able to come to the level of acceptance. Because I remember in the 80s, we had one devotee in Ghana. He was such a devoted guy, but there is one aspect of our philosophy he never accepted it, and that was the philosophy of reincarnation. No matter how we explain to him, this boy never accepts. He said no, he doesn't believe in the reincarnation. But he was doing everything. He believed in Krishna, he believed in the deities, he believed in everything, but he never believed in reincarnation. So does that make him less of a devotee? Personally, I don't think so. We still pray. All we have to do is we pray and see, beg for the mercy of Guru and Krishna that they open our eyes, they open our hearts for us to be able to recognize that the Acha Vigriha forms are actually the Supreme Person himself. Other than that, I don't know. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That's
Hare Krishna.
excellent.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sahaji.
Sri Chaitanya Prema Prabhu, hold on for a second. Mother Lila was saying something. After that, you come in, please.
Well, I just wanted to thank Hari Chakra because that was beautifully said. It's very true. Yeah, there's a difference because it's a practice. We're trying to train ourselves to remember to see appropriately. And we can't be so judgmental if we're not there yet, because of course we've been conditioned for so long. And so we can just keep praying and pray for that sight. And then Krishna says, everyone follows my paths in all respects, and no matter what we do, we're following him anyway. But I appreciated that, what you said about just pray. We need the mercy of Guru. It's very true. I don't have the sight to see, right? Om Jnana Timirandasya. I was born in the ignorance, in the darkness of ignorance. And I had a similar with the deities that are so dear to me now, Radha Mulidhar and Gaurachandra in New York City. I didn't understand for many years. I would see people completely overwhelmed with emotion for the deities, and I didn't feel it, and I couldn't understand. I kept thinking, what's wrong with me that I don't feel it? I don't understand. And it wasn't until I left New York and then 1 year later came back, walked into the temple, and immediately was flooded with this emotion of having missed them. And that was the first time that I felt connected to them. And it was because I had been away for so long. It just wasn't happening. And I didn't do anything to bring that connection. It just happened. So I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of us we're going through the motions, but are we really believing it and feeling it and seeing it and deeply into our hearts? And that's important. There's nothing wrong with that, but we should be honest about it. Thank you. So Varahacharya, I think
we got Chaitanya Prema Prabhu, if you're still there, please give me unmute.
Prabhu,
Yeah.
there's evidence here. So it's so noisy at the background here. I don't know whether you will hear me.
We hear you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to thank everyone for their various contributions. It has been said already that we are neophytes. We are not Mayavadis, but we are neophytes. We are neophytes. Therefore, there are still layers of dust to be removed. Because there is no question of accepting the Lord or not accepting the Lord or being a Vaishnava, then you cannot offer obeisances to the form of the Lord. If you accept the name of the Lord and you reject the form of the Lord, it is contamination that is causing it. So what is the question of accepting the name? If you sincerely accept the name and you are chanting the name, definitely everything else will be revealed to you, that this is the Lord. And if the Lord revealed his form to you, that is Jagannath, then you say you don't accept. You will not offer obeisances, that you cannot understand the Lord. Because it is only those who offer obeisances that can understand the Lord. So it is contamination. It is not that the person is a Mayavadi, but the person has some contamination that needs to be removed. So it will take more shelter of the form of the Lord that he accepts, like the holy name. If you accept the name of the Lord, it will chant the name of the Lord, then that will help to purify that block there. And eventually we see that the name and the form are the same. No question of accepting the name and rejecting a particular form. Okay? So be ready to go into yourself and work on yourself. If you are accepting some part of the Lord, and despite all the philosophy behind, all the incarnation, all the Bhagavatam, you are not accepting some other part. Work on yourself through the part that you have accepted, the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna. The background is too noisy, so I will stop here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
My approach is very volatile, and I want to be volatile, but it's unfortunate that the rain is battling with me. I'm not even hearing myself as I'm speaking. Hare Krishna.
Well, we had you really clear. So thank you for the contribution. Srimad Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It's good that Chintara Prabhu spoke. So I want to explain that question or make my contribution on the question of from 3 points, 3 perspectives. One is in the 5 days of devotional service. After Sadhu Sangha, Namakirtan, in the order of importance. The 4th one is Murti Shraddha Sevaya, which is the 4th one. And the 5th one is living in Mathura, holy place. So it's in the order of importance. And if you see the order of importance, Sadhu Sangha, Namakirtan, Bhagavad Smaran. And then the 4th one, Murti Seva. It is not just Murti Seva, it is Murti Shraddhaya Sevaya, which means that it has to be done with faith. 3 words I use, Murti Shraddha Sevaya. Without faith, deity worship is difficult. So it is a member of the devotional service, but which actually demands a lot of faith. Now, having said that, when Dr. Daya was asked, who is a Vaishnava? His first answer is the one who chants the one who chants the holy name. So you have to understand that whoever accepts the chanting of the name of the Lord is actually made a lot of progress. It's a Vaishnava. Lord Chaitanya said it, I'm not the one who. They asked him, who is a Vaishnava? He said, the one who chanted. I'm only quoting. So if somebody is chanting the holy name and is having problem accepting the deity service, there's no problem because it is already noted when they are describing the name of the devotional service that Murti Seva is with Shraddha. It has to be done with faith. So it requires a lot of faith to do it. So that has to be understood. And what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if the person is chanting the holy name, then gradually the Lord will be revealed to him. That's a fact. And now that would make me go to the 3rd aspect of my contribution. It's a practical experience I had when I was the temple president some times back in Ibadan, Nigeria. And there was this Muslim cleric who used to come and attend Bhagavatam class. And the deity in our temple are Jagannath deities. So this guy actually loved the philosophy a lot. I knew him to be a Muslim, right? But I never knew that he was actually a cleric who was like an imam. So he used to ask a lot of philosophical questions, and we would always clarify. One morning, after the Bhagavatam class, he came to me, and then some devotees just arrived from Lagos. So he greeted. So he came to me in the office and said, Prabhu, something has happened in my life. I said, what is it? He said that it's a question I've been refusing to ask. And I said that if truly Krishna is God, he should answer that question without me asking. If deities are God. So I said, how do you get answer to that? He said, well, I've been trying not to ask that question because I really wanted Krishna to reveal himself, that if it's the deity, if he is God, he should reveal himself. And today it has been revealed. I said, how? He said, just now the devotees arrived and all of you bow down to each other, greeting one another. And he said, that is a philosophy in Islam, that a true Muslim sees God everywhere. So you are not seeing God only in Jagannath deities, but you are also seeing God in one another. So now I can believe that Jagannath is Krishna. But if you have limited, if all your understanding of God is just the deities, then I would still say something is lacking here. But the way I see all of you bow down to one another, then immediately it just clicked in my heart that these people see God in everything. That is La ilaha illallah. That is the meaning of La ilaha illallah. So, because of his faith and hearing, chanting, Krishna revealed to me, Prema Prabhu said, it's true. But the first step in devotional service to have association of devotees, Krishna will lead us to be able to chant the holy name. So once you're chanting the holy name, the others will fall into place, because in the what is it called? In the procedure, in the limbs of bhakti, Murti Shraddha Seva is the fourth, and that is in progression. Okay, so if I can just add one last thing, and this may be a bit mysterious. I mean, not mysterious, or mystical. The deity worship is actually part of Pancharatra, which makes it's also part of Tantra. It's part of Tantra. Now, many people with experience of Tantra may have different reasons why they may not want to accept the deities. Not because they don't believe, but because they're scared. So if you know something about Tantra, you have to understand that deity worship is very powerful, and you got to be very careful. And many of us, like Prabhupada used to say that, we're like, not just walking blindly. I don't know exactly how to call that. But anyway, many of us take the deities for granted because we never really had experience of worshiping, of doing a similar type of worship before coming into Krishna consciousness. If you've done that, or in tradition like in India, where they do a lot of deity worship, in different forms, they know you don't joke with deities. So some people may have it difficult to be able to, be drawn into worshiping deities because of this. But they actually believe in our teaching, and they believe in Krishna, and they believe in chanting. I've met people like that. Not only the Muslim guy. I've met Christians who love, chanting and Krishna. But then they are just a bit, reluctant about deity worship. So all this is because of their experience of what it entails, even in their own local tradition. And all this deity worship stuff is Tantra, it's part of Tantra. But it is the pure aspect of it that we have in Pancharatra. But it is similar, the same thing, more practical. Anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, His Grace Srimad Bhagavatam Prabhu. Mother Lila, you have something to say?
No, nothing other than thank you. I'm just blown away by this. It just keeps adding to the beauty and the layers of understanding, because this is our search for it. Krishna says, I will give them the understanding by which they will come to me. And that comes also from hearing from one another. So I'm just extremely grateful for all of these discussion points. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. We've already spent so much time, but I wanted to say something in regards to Ras Vilas Prabhu's question about somebody offering meat to God, who is not a Vaishnava. Once someone is offering something to God, means that he is following some sort of path, except he or she has just concocted or created his own way of doing things. But every bona fide religion in this world, like Hare Krishna Prabhu was saying, has their code of conduct, and they have laws and rules that they follow. So if one follows the rules and the regulations as ascribed in their particular religion, there is a guarantee that such a person will move on to advance to a higher status, to approaching God. The unfortunate thing is that we do not follow what is inscribed in the scriptures. Ras Vilas, I don't think you were here that day. Bhakta Hassan asked a similar question to what you just asked, that Krishna does not want us to eat meat, fish, eggs. But in the scriptures of the Muslims, like the Quran, it is clearly stated there that they can kill animal and offer. And Hare Krishna Prabhu came in, he says, well, what is there is that, like just last week, the Muslims had their 1 month Ramadan fast, which they just ended. And in that Ramadan, they fast for 30 days, 30 days, after which they slaughter cow to feast. And so they do this in remembrance of how God asked Abraham to offer his son Isaac. Now, Hare Krishna Prabhu's question was, God asked Abraham to offer his son. So if Abraham had killed his son, was God going to expect Abraham to eat his son's flesh? No. And when God did not let Abraham kill his son, Isaac, but showed him a sheep, and he killed the sheep, is it written anywhere that he ate? No. So it's just like some people see Lord Shiva smoke ganja, and so they also say they also smoke ganja. But when it comes to drinking the ocean of poison, they will not dare. So we pick and choose from the scriptures what we want to do, and we use that just to cover up our interests, our self-interest. It's just like many people do, crazy things in the name of religion, simply because they have their own political agendas, and then they cover it up with religion. But no true religion asks that people should just kill animals aimlessly. No. So that is just what I wanted to share. But before we go, Mother Lila, I have one quick question, and this will be my last time speaking for today. Is the text itself. I think, let me see, if I can put it up here. I think Shukadev Goswami is giving us an assignment to do. That is an instruction. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of love and service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. This is my utmost interest. In other words, Shukadev Goswami is saying that at the end of each and every one's prescribed duties, after we've done whatever we have to do in order to live in this material world, we should not forget to meditate upon the universal form of the Lord. In other words, no matter what we do, we should try to remember Krishna. Now, my question is, if you can help us, guide us, how we can do that, because we see in this material world, like we have fast food everywhere because everybody's moving so fast, people do not even have time to stay home to cook. So with all this insane busy schedule running here and there, what would be like the most ideal or the most good technique to not forget Krishna and to try to remember him, even after our busy lives? Hare Krishna.
What is the best? Well, I think it's gonna be different for everyone. Everyone's gonna find their own way of making that connection. For some people, it is going to be, you know, deity worship, because we're thinking about the we are thinking about the elements that Krishna. But I think it's, let's see, a simple way to remember Krishna at the end of our prescribed duties. It goes back to being regulated. It just has to, because you know, if we're practicing, if we're in that place and we're trying to get there, we have to be regulated. We have to see that our energies and our time, these are our greatest resources, and how we are spending them. It really is that simple, because it doesn't help us to just run around crazy and busy. We're never going to have nothing to do. There's never going to be an end to the duties and the responsibilities and all the things that we want to accomplish. But what's going to happen if I've done all of these things, and I can be so proud of how much I've accomplished in this world, and look how good I'm at, you know, being effective and efficient and productive. But what if I'm going to die, and then I didn't pay attention to my sadhana and to chanting the holy names and to reading the scriptures and getting more understanding? All of that's not going to be worth anything. So we have to be regulated. We just have to see, how am I spending my time and my energy? And it is a process. We have to practice it, but we can't take it for granted. We have to see the greatest value is in the things that aren't going to ever decompose or diminish. And that is our sadhana. That is never, we don't make any backward steps in our sadhana. Every little step takes us forward. This is in the Bhagavad Gita. But no matter how much I accomplish in this world, it's not going to take me further. And it's just remembering how to die. That's really, it comes down to it. The way we know what to do with our time and our energy, if it's effective, is to remember that I'm going to die. And am I going to be happy with this decision? And if I can go ahead and do all these actions and then offer them to Krishna and be able to let go when that moment comes, then I should go ahead and do it. But if I'm going to spend all of this time and all of this energy on things that I'm not going to be able to take with me, and then I'm going to regret that I didn't pay attention to my sadhana and to the things that actually matter and that are outside of time and space, then maybe we have to reevaluate. Because the only way to, I think one of the ways to really live is to learn how to die. And your Guru Maharaj talked about this so much. We can't take it for granted. And so death, to become friends with death, is one way that we can get really serious about our life. Because if we get serious about death, we're going to get serious about living, and it'll put everything into its perspective. And then everyone still will be able to do what is important to them. And we make choices based on our individual lives, but the idea is the same. We don't know when that date's going to come. And so, yeah, learning how to die is going to teach us to learn how to live, and how, you know, it's going to direct our focus. This Krishna consciousness is just about directing our focus and being mindful it is the mindfulness movement, but it's just being mindful of the highest truths. So they're very simple, just being mindful and be focused. But how do I get there unless I take things very seriously? When it comes to our business and our making money and this and that, we can be really, really focused. But we see all the time that when that day comes, none of that matters for anything. You know, like Steve Jobs, he said, no matter what, how much money you have, it can't buy you this, you know, this health. It can't buy you extra time. Prabhupada said that. Even 1 second you can't get back with all the money in the world. So being mindful, it's just, you know, what am I doing? I'm looking at, I started this new system of like organizing my life called the bullet journal method. And it's not like, you know, these sometimes you see about these things that they look like very artsy, kind of spend a lot of time coloring things. It's not that. It's just about being mindful about my resources, which are time and energy, and how does that contribute to my ultimate goal of coming to understand something in spiritual life and making that my first priority. So it's easy to say, make it your priority, chant first, this and that. But I think before we can make it important and a priority, we have to understand why. And the reason why is because I have a very, very limited time here. And I have to let that fear of death be the thing that guides me towards solving that problem. How do I solve that problem? By remembering that I don't actually die, and I have to be thinking about Krishna to remember that. So yeah, just practical mindfulness of the highest truths. And it's so difficult. So I think that we're all in it together.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mother Lila, for your frankness and your in-depth knowledge and application of Krishna consciousness teachings in our day-to-day lives. We truly appreciate it. So we've been here for quite. Harichakra Prabhu, you have something to share? I was going to say we've been here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hare
go
Krishna.
ahead, please. Yes.
Yeah, the little I wanted to share is about the question you just asked. And well, personally, the way I understand that thing is that many a time we think about, oh, I'm absorbing my work and all these things. And the example I used to give when I used to preach seriously on radio and this thing was that, like, if even you are a married man and you have a serious fight with your wife and you go to work, even though you'll be working all right, but at the back of your mind, that fight from the house will be lingering in the back of your mind all day. And similarly, if you really, really love your wife, then when you are even working, when there is even no fight, when you go to work and you are working, you are so absorbed in your job. And even though you are absorbed in your job, but at the back of your mind, you'll be thinking about your wife and how hard you want to work to, help her, to how you want to work to secure her properly so that she doesn't fall into any type of difficulty. So basically the way I understand it is that it doesn't matter how hard we work, but if we are working and we are at the back of our mind, we are thinking about the Lord, that all this energy we are putting it here, we are putting it so that we can help with the mission of God in our life, in this world. How whatever we are doing, we can do it so that we can use the fruit of it, or whatever it is, to help the mission to go on. Once we have the Lord at the back of our mind, then our very work becomes service to God. It doesn't matter how much energy we put in, it becomes direct service to the Lord. Because it's like somebody going to distribute books. Some devotee can go out to distribute books, but he goes to distribute books for money. He doesn't care whether people are getting the knowledge or not. But he buys the books, he goes out and sell it to make money. He uses it as a business. So that devotee and another person and somebody else who is not distributing books, but he's also doing another type of job and also thinking out just about the money. What is the difference between them? So the idea is we should all be absorbed in thinking about the Lord to the extent that every single aspect of our life will be like a meditation, some sort of a meditation on the Lord. And in this way, I'm talking personally, that is how I think it is. In this way, we will see that everything we are doing is for the service, is for the pleasure of the Lord. And our whole existence becomes devotion to God. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Hare Chakra Prabhu. Let me see, Mother Lila, we thank you so much. There is something in the chat room, but I think maybe we'll take it next time. We've been here for 2 hours, right?
Hi. Okay, Bhakta Hassan will answer your question next time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay. Hare Krishna, Mother.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The question I wanted to ask, I think His Grace Hare Chakra Prabhu contribution has answered part of it, so it's okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. So, dear devotees, we're humbly requesting each and everyone to kindly unmute, and then we all chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to Her Grace Lila Devi for being with us for more than 2 hours, giving us her love, her insight in the Buddha service, and Krishna bringing us all together. So you may all unmute and we all chant. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Pancha Kalpa
Panchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam.
All glories to Her Grace Lila Devi ki Jai.
All glories to the assembled devotees.